It's finally finished, but we're stuck in supernatural purgatory. This podcast is a rewatch of all 15 seasons and hopefully our way to finally escape this show.
Join us once a week for a fun, informal discussion on each episode and leave comments on any specific upcoming plot points you'd like us to discuss.
This week, we are talking about Bugs, episode 8.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we spoke last episode about this being the worst rated episode of Supernatural. So it only has 7 out of 10 on IMDb, which is still fairly high, but I feel like maybe that might have gone up recently because I was like looking at some of the reviews and it recently has some 10-star reviews because people have been throwing some shade at another certain episode by upvoting this one. So I don't know what it was before November. It may have been lower. So
right.
This was also directed by Kim Manners, and I think you can kind of tell he has a very distinct style. And yeah, I like it. It feels kind of darker and edgier, I think, his style of directing, and I can kind of appreciate it. The writer was Rachel Nave, I think that's how you say her name, and Bill Coakley. So 2 writer credits on there. They haven't done any other episodes that we've watched so far, I don't believe.
Yeah. No, and so I was just looking up Rachel Nave. She only wrote this one episode.
Oh, okay. I was really surprised at this episode because obviously, like, you go into it thinking, oh, this is like the worst rated episode of Supernatural, like nothing's gonna happen. But controversially, I think the main plot points in this, I think this is a better episode than Hookman.
Oh yeah, I'm in agreement with you on that one.
It's not all good. There are some problematic things with this episode, but I think in terms of storyline, like main storyline, it's important actually.
Yeah, if you can get past like everything else,
yeah,
it like I guess does that one scene really balance out against the entire 42-minute episode? Like,
yeah,
it's not super balanced in that. So
yeah,
but I guess we can get into it and
let's
kind of go through a little bit.
So we start in Oasis Plains, Oklahoma, and we're at a housing development, and they're making a point of this being like houses for rich people.
They really are.
Yeah.
But, okay, so I'm just going back on that a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not really. It is like it's middle class housing.
Definitely.
Suburbia. Like it's like especially. So I mean, 2005, the housing market was not horrendous. So I'm pretty sure these construction workers could actually afford these houses.
I mean,
anyway.
Yeah. I don't know what the housing market was like in Oklahoma in 2005, 2006, but yeah, they don't seem like amazingly over the top. So there's a guy there from like the gas and power place, and he's with another person. I think they're called Dustin and Travis. He's looking at something, and then a sinkhole opens, and he falls into it. And he's like, "Ow, my ankle's broken."
Yeah, and they show you the broken ankle. It's kind of graphic. Yeah, like it's like his. I'm not sure if the bone's protruding, but it's definitely bleeding. It's really, it's not nice. This whole episode made me kind of like make that noise throughout most of it.
Yeah, I mean, bugs don't bother me that much. I thought it would maybe more, but I'll be honest, this episode's janky enough that it kind of didn't bother me. So he's fallen down this hole, and his friend's going to his co-worker is trying to go get a rope to save him. And in the time it takes for him to go get a rope, I don't know, he gets eaten by bugs, I guess. I'm not sure what actually happened to him.
I think it's like his brain got eaten.
Ugh. Oh yeah, because they say
something
about like his brain disintegrated.
Yeah.
I'm glad they didn't show that.
I mean, yeah. All they show is like his bleeding from his eyes and his nose and his ears. Yeah. It's still kind of not pleasant.
So the bugs ate his brain. Ew. Yeah. So yeah, that's the opening sequence and how we're introduced to, I guess, the monster. in like quotation marks of the week, which are insects. Yeah. So we cut to a biker bar, and we know it's a biker bar because it has loads of bikes outside.
Yeah.
And Sam's like sitting on the bonnet of the Impala reading a newspaper, and Dean comes out looking pretty pleased with himself because he's got a ton of cash.
Yeah.
That he's, I guess, just hustled.
Which, I mean, that's kind of brave to hustle at a biker bar. Like, I wouldn't want to do that.
I wonder how many fights he's got in over the years.
Probably too many.
But they have a little conversation about how they make money, because I think Sam says, like, shouldn't we get day jobs? And he said, like, hunting is our day job, but it doesn't pay very well, obvs. So they have to hustle and do credit card scams.
You know, we could get day jobs once in a while.
Hunting's our day job, and the pay is crap.
Yeah, but hustling pool? Credit card scams? It's not the most honest thing in the world, Dean.
Well, let's see, honest, fun and easy. It's no contest. Besides, we're good at it. It's what we were raised to do.
Yeah, well, how we were raised was jacked.
Yeah, says you.
And this whole episode starts with this conversation, then is themed throughout, that they're kind of alluding more to their relationship with John and how it works. So, you know, I think Dean says, like, this is how we were raised. And I think Sam says, like, well, how we were raised was jacked. So it's kind of setting the tone for the whole kind of interactions between them in this episode.
Definitely. And so he's like, Sam mentions that it's not honest work, like doing like the scams and hustling and stuff. Yeah. And then Dean's like, but it's not fun and easy, like, you know, doing all this other stuff. Yeah. So it's kind of an interesting, like, it's weird what their morals are, I guess.
Yeah.
Because obviously Dean feels very strongly about like saving people, but not so strongly about scamming people.
I think that he would see it as like, this is what they have to do in order to save people, so that's how he would like morally like pass it out. Yeah. Whereas I think Sam thinks maybe they could do something more legal. I don't know. I mean, there must be ways to make money more legally, and I guess they never really deal with this issue. Like in later seasons, they just kind of get money from somewhere. They don't really discuss it again.
Yeah. Well, so there is that. I think it's season 15, where, you know, they've lost all their luck.
Yeah.
And like they mentioned something about like a credit card that they had. So that's like unlimited and like they never have to pay for it.
Yeah. I feel like Charlie set something up for them actually.
Yeah, that's where it comes from. So I guess, but I mean, Charlie's not introduced until what, season 7, maybe 8?
Yeah, it must be season 7. So yeah, you know, I kind of like it. It's interesting to look at how they think about what they're doing as well. It starts off this conversation between sort of Sam not very happy with it, and Dean's like, well, this is our life, so get over it, kind of thing. So Sam introduces the case to Dean, and because this guy, they think that he died of mad cow disease, which is crazy.
Mad cow? Isn't that on Oprah?
You watch Oprah?
And Dean's like, what, like on Oprah? So apparently Dean watches Oprah. But we know about him now that he watches TV like a lot somehow. Yeah. So it didn't come as a surprise to me, but I guess if you watched this originally, like, okay, that's pretty funny.
Yeah. Well, and also the look that Sam gives him is like, you watch Oprah?
Yeah. Like it's daytime television, right? Oh, I don't know what time Oprah was on, but it feels like daytime TV. Yeah, it makes sense. What else are you going to do while you're sat in motels for like hours, days on end?
Right, exactly. And like when they were kids, that's all they did. They sat in motels all day and like did homeschooling and stuff. So
yeah,
you know, like you're going to watch TV, and Oprah was massive. So
yeah, makes sense. So yeah, they say about the guy's brain's been disintegrated. It seems like ooky spooky enough for them to go have a look at it. So they go. And the shot they use of the Impala driving from one side of the screen to the other on their way there, I think they definitely used that shot before.
Yep, and it was dead in the water too. So I'm guessing that Kim Masters really likes that shot and was like, let's use it again.
Yeah, it's a nice shot, to be fair. It's very overcast, very like
Manners, sorry, not Masters.
Yeah, it's very I can't think of the word. It's gone.
It's atmospheric.
Yes, thank you. So they go talk to the guy called Travis, who was with Dustin when he died, and they're pretending to be like Dustin's nephews, and they don't really get called out on this at all. Like, he goes along with it, and it's just a bit of exposition. So he tells them like where it happened, what happened, blah blah blah. And then
it's very sort of boom 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 boom. This is what we need, the information we need to get to the location, basically.
Exactly. So they arrive at the housing like estate, and they find the sinkhole, and Dean decides that someone's going down that hole.
I really like this moment. It's a really good sibling moment. I know reverse psychology is used a lot, but it kind of is, because he's like, I'll go, and Sam's like, no, I'll go, we'll flip a coin, and then like he grabs the coin out of the air and says, no, I'll just go.
Flip the damn coin.
Call it in the air, chicken.
I'm going.
I said I'd go.
Yeah. Like, because I was thinking, like, before they actually, like, flipped the coin and then didn't flip it, I was thinking, like, maybe Dean, like, manipulates it sometimes so he ends up going, because it seems like a very, like, Dean thing to do, like, pretend he doesn't want to go and then end up, like, going anyway. And then Sam was like, no, I'll just do it, and he, like, let him. I was like, oh, okay. I was quite surprised by that.
Yeah, me too.
But
then we don't even...
Yeah!
Yeah, they don't just show them go into the hole. They just, like... They sort of fade out, and it's now, like, as close-up of Sam's hand with the bug in it, with the beetle in it.
They're like, back in the Impala, like, driving away. Like, oh, I want to see him go down the hole.
Yeah, me too. So I'm going to bring attention to something. When I was making the like, art for this episode... so what I do, I go through the like episode and see if I can find like kind of cool shots from each one. Mm-hmm. And I stopped because I really liked the way that this was framed and everything. So I was like, okay, this is the one we're going to use. But when you zoom into it, it doesn't look like it's actually them. Like, if you, I mean, I don't know how big you can make your, obviously I can see it much bigger because I have the artwork, but you can tell that it's not them, or like, I'm not sure if it's stand-ins, because Dean's face is it's too bright on his head, and like his neck is in the wrong position. Like, it's as if he was looking forward and they like just put his head to look down. It's really, really weird. And even Sam's head, like
very badly photoshopped almost.
Yeah. So I was just, when I was making the art, I was just like, what? And as I looked at it more, it got worse. And I was like, do I bring it up? Do I not bring it up? I'll bring it up. And it made me laugh.
Let people have a look. See how weird it looks. Mm-hmm. I like that we distract it.
Yeah. So go ahead and go look back at that scene, and you'll also see it. Like, it's not good. I don't know what they were thinking at that point, but
I don't know what happened. Like, the CGI and the effects this episode are all over the place. Like, I don't know what happened, but it's all over the place. Like, really. Yeah. So I think this may be indicative of that. Okay.
Probably.
So they're driving away from the sinkhole, and they see an open house that has a free barbecue, so they're all in for that. Well, Dean is. And so they turn up to the house, and this is the first time this happens, and I forgot that this happens in early seasons, where they're, like, mistaken for a couple.
Let me just say, we accept homeowners of any race, religion, color, or sexual orientation.
We're brothers.
When they turn up some places. I get people might, like, read more into this, but actually, if you were, like, turning up at an open house with someone, I think people are just going to automatically assume that you are a couple, because generally siblings don't buy houses together, usually.
This is true. So, before they get actually into the house, Sam and Dean have a conversation of, like, don't you want normal? And Dean's like, I'd rather have our family over normal any day.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting.
The manicured lawns. How was your day, honey? I'd blow my brains out.
There's nothing wrong with normal.
I'd take our family over normal any day.
But like having this like suburban life seems like beyond him, and like really he finds it like the worst, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's so weird to me. Like early season Dean, like he's like, yeah, if I had to live somewhere like this, I'd go crazy. Or I can't remember what he says. It's just this episode is, I don't know. I find it weird to me how much Dean is like defending John and defending their lifestyle and sort of almost performing like how much he likes how they're, I don't know. I guess it's all he's really ever known, whereas Sam's had kind of a taste of normality, right, with college. So I don't know. It feels a lot. And it's yeah. So they have this conversation walking up to the house, and like I said, they're greeted by Larry, the estate agent, and I said they get mistaken for a couple as they walk through the house. And then again as well, like when they're in the garden, they're introduced to a lady whose name is Linda, I think, and she also like so the first time I think Dean says like, oh, we're brothers, and the second time he just rolls with it. I think he calls Sam like honey.
And like slaps him on the butt as he walks away.
Well, let me just say that we accept homeowners of any race, religion, color, or sexual orientation.
Right. I'm gonna go talk to Larry. Okay, honey?
I mean, I guess he was just like, you know what? If people are gonna assume, I might as well just go along with it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's gonna keep happening, so, whatever. Yeah.
So we're inside the house with Dean and Larry, and he's just sort of explaining what the houses are going to be like with a steam shower and this kind of stuff. And then Dean notices like jars of bugs, which, like, why? Why would you have just jars of bugs in your house? I know that he's like the son is like interested in them, but like the way he had so many crickets in that one like mason jar. I'm like, the only reason why you have that many is if you have a snake or like something.
A lizard, yeah,
a lizard or something.
I mean, I do have a friend who has a lot of bugs in their house, and like, shout out if you know who you are. But like, they don't take up much space.
Well, yeah, because you could keep them in a jar or like a small. Like,
yeah, but you shouldn't keep them in jars like that. They should be in a proper little, terrarium thing. So
that's right. That's what's
be nice to your bugs if you're going to keep them. But she has like big giant like millipedes and things. Very cool. I quite like them. I don't like spiders so much, but other bugs, I don't mind them. I think the bigger they get, the cooler they look. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense.
I know you don't agree with me.
No, and unless it's a cockroach, and that way, no, they can just. The smaller ones are harder to get rid of, but I'd rather have that than the massive ones that we eventually see in this episode. I have the medium-sized ones that come into this in my apartment a couple of times. Luckily, not too often, so it's not the worst, but it's.
Enough to like.
It's usually when like, yes, because it's usually like I see them at like 5 o'clock in the morning. Like I've just gotten up to go to the bathroom, and I'm like, oh no, I have to deal with that because it's gonna just stay in here and attract more. So it's just like, oh, anyway, moving on.
So we go back outside, and Sam is talking to the sales lady, Linda. Oh yes, tarantula. And then he sees a tarantula like creeping up on her hand.
And you can kind of see like this teenager in the background, like kind of snickering, and they do then cut to his face to show that he's like trying to be a bit of a prankster with this spider. And so like Sam looks really bored with this conversation, like, okay, whatever, I don't really need to know all the details of this house kind of thing, or this development. So he sort of says, excuse me, and goes and picks up the spider and hands it back over to, his name's Matt, I believe.
Yeah, Matt. Son. Although better known as Samandriel. So, like, because this actor obviously comes back later on to play Samandriel. although he's Matthew in this episode. I wonder if we could like realistically say they are the same person. I think they could be. Maybe he's Samantha's vessel. Yeah. I think canon-wise it works fine. But yeah, it's jarring sometimes because this happens a lot, and I think a lot with some of these actors in this episode, but that they do come back later on. I think we talked about that before, but to be fair, when Samandra appears later on in the seasons, I didn't clock him as that boy from Bugs.
No. I mean, Angel's come in so much later, like, you know, his years later, so of course he looks like a teenager in this episode, so he'll look less like a teenager later on, so it's kind of...
Yeah, exactly. So, like, they are talking about this, like, you know, he kind of tells him off a bit for, like, the spider, like, it's not cool. And then, like, Matthew gets called away by his dad and, like, gets sort of shouted at on the porch. Sam says to Dean...
Remind you of somebody?
Like, as in Larry, like, comparing him to John. And, like, Dean looks kind of confused about this, like, he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And I feel like... So Sam says here, like, well, Dad never treated you like that because you were, like, the perfect, like, one or whatever.
Dad never treated us like that.
Well, Dad never treated you like that. You were perfect. He was all over my case.
And Sam, like, he doesn't know, does he? He doesn't know all the... I don't think, at this point, all the, like, crap that John has put Dean through over the years.
Yeah, no, not at all. But at the same time, like... So I kind of understand a little bit with this one, being a younger sibling. It always looked like my my only older brother got it. I know it was not true, but like when you don't have the conversation that obviously they need to have, with John, you do look at it like your older sibling got treated better than you a little bit.
I mean, so I am the oldest, and I've had this conversation with my younger brother, and we're kind of similar in age difference to like Sam and Dean, I guess. It's like 5 years. So he said to me before, like, I wish our parents wouldn't compare me to you, you know. And I think this is I guess I can sympathize with that, although I don't know the feeling. Like, it must be difficult for people to do things first in your family and then you be compared to them afterwards. And I think that's probably what's happening here, right? So, you know, John's trained Dean to be a good hunter. And then maybe if Sam doesn't pick it up as quickly or is less inclined to want to do it, he's going to feel like he's being compared to that and is judged for it. Yeah. Right.
So, like, it does. So looking up to your older sibling, sometimes you do feel like your parents think that older sibling is much better than you. It's really messed up. It's really annoying because, like, I know that it's not true, but growing up you're just like, oh, I'm being compared to this person, so it's kind of... But then, like, I've had the conversation with my older brother that, like, he felt like that I was managed to getting away with things that he could never do.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like,
so
my younger brother got away with loads of stuff that I never would have been able to get away with, and that's just the truth.
And I mean, it's true for me too. So it's kind of, you know, I guess this is what they feel like too, because you kind of pick it up a little bit because Dean also says, like, I guess it's a little bit later on in the episode, but like he does come back to that a little bit.
Yeah. So I think it feels like a really real conversation, and I can totally see it. But I do think it's a shame that Sam doesn't have more context sometimes, because I mean, Dean's also kind of right. Like, Sam did get away with a load of stuff. I don't know if Dean would have got away with going to college, you know?
Right.
Anyway, they do, like I say, they do discuss it a bit more later on. So they discussed that there was another murder where a surveyor was killed by like a load of bees, like death by bee stings. And they're discussing what this could be. So they think, could it be a ghost? They're like, no, there's not really any like... I think they say spiritual activity.
So they're having this conversation while Sam's driving, which I thought was really weird. This episode, Sam's driving everywhere for the most part. I was just like, what's going on? Like, why is he in the driver's seat in this one?
Yeah, I thought that too. I was like, oh, Sam's driving. I think Dean was looking something up maybe in the journal. Maybe he wasn't driving. Yeah, I thought it was quite fun. So they're thinking like maybe it could be like a psychic connection. They're like, oh, well, it could be that kid, you know, the one with the weird bugs. Like, that's not a big stretch.
Right. They make a reference to a Willard, which is actually a story of some kind.
I don't know this one.
It's in the trivia of the episode. So, okay, in the trivia it says, Dean suggests that maybe the bugs are being controlled by someone. Sam says, you mean like Willard. And Willard is a 1971 horror movie about a social misfit who befriends and then trains a group of rats to do his bidding.
Oh, I've never heard of this movie. Yeah, that sounds legit. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they pull up and like Dean pulls up at an empty house and was like, we're staying here.
We're gonna squat in an empty house.
Did you notice as because like Dean gets out because obviously Sam's driving and pulls up the garage door, that as Sam pulls into the garage, he like smacks him in the stomach through the through the Impala window.
Yeah. So I didn't know if I didn't see that he smacked him, but I did see I thought he like ran over his foot or something. Like
no. I like rewound it because I was like, why did he flinch like that? Oh, he just like smacked, like hit him through the window. I don't know. Yeah, I mean it's a good place to stay, nicer than a motel, I guess.
Yeah, and like technically there's such things as squatters' rights, and since it's an empty house and they did break in, so technically they can't be squatters. I think the only way you can squat is if like it's open, so you go in and then close the door and then that's it. I don't know what the real.
Yeah, easy. So yeah, and then we cut back to Linda, and she's watching TV, and they're talking about mosquitoes and like West Nile virus, and like as she's watching it, she gets like bitten by a mosquito. So it's like then she decides to go have a shower, and
so, wait. She got bitten by a mosquito? In the one I saw, a spider comes across her face.
Was it a big spider? I thought it was just a mosquito, because it made sense. Maybe I wasn't watching properly, but it made sense. They were talking about mosquitoes on the TV, and then there was a mosquito in her room. It kind of like she smacked her cheek.
So, I mean, they might have changed it, but in the version that I saw on Netflix, it's a giant spider that like crawls down from her hairline and like across her face.
That would make more sense. Maybe I couldn't see it. To be fair, I was watching this in the daytime, and these scenes are so dark. Sometimes it's really hard to see like detail in them. So I'll go with sure. I'll agree with you. It probably was a big spider. Ugh, that makes it worse. No. So she goes into the shower, and I just wrote here bad CGI spiders because I didn't know where spiders.
Yeah, it would look like black pieces of fuzz just like coming out.
I think they wanted to CGI spiders and then realised they couldn't get the detail on them that they wanted to get, so just made them kind of black shadows that looked like spiders.
Maybe. Yeah.
But this makes her freak out, and she breaks through the glass of her shower and sort of cuts herself. And I don't think that's what kills her, though, because it then shows like bugs crawling on her, so I think she probably hurt herself and then the bugs got her.
Yeah, yeah, because like she crawls away and there's like a trail of blood, like leading to her body, and she's dead.
Anyway, it's nasty.
This is true.
So the next scene is like, I've seen this so many times I didn't know it was from Bugs. Where it sounds like banging on the bathroom door, being like, "Get out of the shower! There's like the police are like investigating a murder." And Dean answers with like a towel wrapped around his head.
Someone was found dead 3 blocks from here. Come on.
The shower is awesome. Come on.
He's like, the shower is awesome.
Like, why are you a towel on your head, dude? Like,
you know, he wants that pampered life. He wants that pampered life.
You do. I love it. Yeah, I forgot that scene was from this episode, so when I saw it, I was like, ah.
But I mean, it's kind of weird. Like, so why? Like the necklace that he wears is like a cord, right?
Yeah.
So wouldn't you take that off, because that's just gonna get wet and nasty?
Yeah, I guess so. But like, there's people in the world that wear lots of like fabric bracelets and things, and don't necessarily always take them off to shower. Like festival ones and stuff. I guess you just cope.
I mean, yeah, that's true. I mean, I know I used to, and that's why I'm like, I remember like the feeling of it, and it's I wouldn't do it now. That's for sure.
Yeah, same.
Unless it was, well,
maybe something really sentimental, which it is, right?
Yeah.
So maybe he's just concerned about losing it, especially in like a strange house. Yeah. So they do go. I guess Dean gets out of the shower pretty quick, and they go up to the crime scene. And I don't know why this tweet's like as funny for me, but I was like, why do they have umbrellas? Like, they just don't seem like guys who would carry umbrellas. I don't know what that means or anything. I just found it amusing. I guess it's easier to film if they have umbrellas because of continuity with like how wet your hair gets and stuff.
Yeah.
I remember watching, I think it's Suicide Squad, which is really badly edited, and there's one scene where like Harley Quinn's hair goes from like wet to dry to wet to dry.
Yeah.
Like really, in one scene, terribly.
I mean, that whole movie was a mess, so
hopefully, I guess it's easier.
Hopefully the next one's going to be better. Anyway,
hopefully.
This is where we find out her name's Linda Bloom.
Yes, that's correct. And they're going to break into her house to go see what's up with the crime scene, which has happened a few times now. They've been breaking into these houses.
So this is how you break into a house and look cool. Like in comparison to last week where, you know, they kind of like flopped into the windows and stuff. Yeah. They actually like properly climb in. Like it's kind of cool how they did it, like shooting up to the sky and they like walk across. I guess it's like fence to fence and you sort of see them step over. It's kind of cool, and then like climb up.
Yeah, this was definitely like you could tell that the directing this episode was better. I think like some of the shots are much cooler.
Yeah. So
they go in and but to be fair, they managed to find the exact window that they need again, just like last time, just on that first try. And as I said, the like body outline that they have in tape just looks really bad.
Yeah, it does. So this is another really cool shot because like it was in the mirror and then like it turned around and then it was actually them, which I thought was really cool. Like if it didn't have the janky like tape outline, which I don't think they even do.
No.
But they have a thing of just like going into active crime scenes. Like they don't care at all. Like they pick up a towel.
Yeah.
And like it's not good.
I just wonder how much. I mean, I guess in there's a later seasons. Is it like season 3? I can't remember. But like there is a kind of comeuppance for all this kind of stuff they do. But how many like criminal investigations did they mess with? Like, do you know? And
probably too many.
Probably too many. Because they're just like walking with their must be muddy shoes because it's raining outside over all this like glass and blood. No attempts made. Like carry shoe covers, guys.
Right, and gloves. Like
gloves.
Especially like so. Sam's a lawyer, so he knows. Like, I'm not sure if he was going into civil or criminal law. I can't remember if they ever mentioned that. Yeah. But like, come on.
So like Dean picks up a towel and like the worst like plastic fake looking spiders fall out of it. Like, this should have been a clue that maybe Supernatural isn't such a good show. This episode. Okay. They did their best. I think to be fair to the like people who worked on this one, I think maybe insects are quite difficult a thing to like convey and show, and they probably did the best they could with very limited resources. Okay, so once they've investigated this crime scene with the bad plastic spiders, they decide that they need to go find Matt because like to see what's up with the weird bug boy.
I think they call him like Spider Boy, and
yes,
Sam turns around and calls him. No, his name's Matt. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, like Sam's vibing hard with Matt. You know, in this episode, he sees himself in him. So maybe Dean teasing him's like hitting a bit close to home. I don't know. Maybe.
So I mean, I don't get how they knew where the bus stop was gonna where the school bus was gonna stop. But maybe they saw like a bus coming in, so they're just like slow down. But they see the school bus and Matt gets off and they're like, hey, isn't his house in the opposite direction? And so they get out of their car because he's walking into like a foresty area, and so they follow him. And so he's looking, I think it's not a stick bug, but it's like
is it a praying mantis?
Yeah, I was going to say maybe it is a praying mantis. It was a big one.
Yeah.
And like Matt turns around and says, like, "You're not serial killers, are you?"
Wait, you're not serial killers.
No, I think you're safe.
And, I mean, at this point, no, but they definitely do become serial killers. If you think about how many, like, angel vessels they kill and demon vessels they kill, like,
yeah,
they're killing the people too. Like, they do become serial killers, for sure.
Let's be real. Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was. I wrote that line down as well. I thought it was pretty funny because Sam's like, no, and I'm thinking maybe later.
Like, give it a season or two.
Yeah. So, like, Dean tells him that Linda dies of spider bites, and Matt's kind of been tracking this. Like, he's realised that there's something weird up with the bugs in the area. Like, he said they're all, like, massing there and stuff. And, like, again, like, Sam brings up his own dad in a weird retrospective way, right? Like, roundabout way. He's like, well, did you tell your dad? And Matt's like, oh no, he's too disappointed with his freak son.
Larry doesn't listen to me.
Why not?
Mostly, he's too disappointed in his freak son.
I hear ya.
You do?
And Sam's like, yeah, you know, I hear you. Like, I fully understand what you're going through.
And he's like, you know, in 2 years, something great's going to happen to you. You're going to turn 18. And he's like, what? He's like, then you can go to college.
Well, don't sweat it, because in 2 years, something great's gonna happen.
What?
College. And you'll be able to get out of that house and away from your dad.
What kind of advice is that? Kid should stick with his family.
Yeah.
I'm like, that was kind of, I don't know, that you shouldn't be giving family advice. Like,
yeah.
It kind of stepped out of line for me on that one. Like, I get what he's trying to say, like, you don't have to worry about it, but at the same time, like, you haven't dealt with your own family issues. Don't be giving advice.
Yeah. And, like, I think even Dean says, like, you know, he should stick with his family. Like, he's often the other view on this. Like, he should stick with his family. Like, why are you giving advice on this? Yeah. Like, yeah. Like, don't take your own family issues out on other people. Not out on other people, but, you know, like, I don't know. He's using this kid to, like, work through his own issues with his dad. Yeah, it's an odd one. Yeah, I don't know. So, I mean, they're walking through the forest and they see what I put as a big creepy patch of ground.
I think I wrote a big mound. Yeah,
and it's like full of worms. So obviously Dean sticks his hand in there because why not?
That's what you do.
I like the fact he pokes with a stick first.
So convenient. There's a stick there.
Exactly. And they find a skull. And I guess they find more as well because we see like a box later full of bones and things.
So I wrote here, that's an unmarked grave, because in the last week episode where there was an actual tombstone, and it was a in quote unmarked grave. No, this is an unmarked grave.
Yeah,
just like this pile of dirt and there's bugs in it. Like, that's an unmarked grave.
Goodness me.
So, all right. Before we get into this next bit, because this bit is important, why would you cover a box with your coat? Like, that is more suspicious to me than if you just carried this box. Because if someone stopped you, you can just be like, hey, it's an art project. You're on a college campus, like, nobody's going to be that weirded out by it. And I was just like, why? It's gloomy. You should be wearing a coat, but your coat is covering the box. Like, what's in the box? To be honest,
I feel like on my university campus, like, someone could be walking around with a cardboard box full of skulls and, like, no one would have even given you a second look. Like,
right. And they had a plan of where they were going, so, like, we'll get into where they were going, but, like, it's just like...
Also, you've got a box full of bones outside of the department for anthropology. No one's going to be asking you.
Exactly. Like, anthropology is a study of culture and bones. Like, it's anyway, whatever.
Yeah, it would have been fine. But yes, he decides to act shady about it, which brings more attention to it, I feel. So we're like, why is that guy covering that box? Like, I'd want to know what was in it.
Yeah, exactly. Is it like, is there cats in it? And they're trying to stop, like, what? Anyway.
I get so excited and I think there are, like, animals in a box. Like, my day can be made, like, if you're at the train station and you see someone with, like, a cat in a box and you're like, oh! Sorry. It's random.
I mean, I don't see that very often. So,
Me
you know
either,
what?
that's why it's special.
Yeah, it's true. This is true.
Yeah. Okay, so as they're walking into this department, these conversations are peppered throughout this episode of them talking about John and their relationship with John and basically their whole family dynamic. And this one is just as important. Like, Dean starts this with, how could you tell that kid to ditch his family? And Sam's like, oh, I know what he's going through. Mm-hmm. And then sort of Dean lays into him about the fact that he's really, really disrespectful to John.
I know what the kid's going through.
About telling him to respect his old man. How's that for advice?
Dean, come on. This isn't about his old man. You think I didn't respect that? That's what this is about.
Like, when he left for college, they were, like, arguing and they were both shouting at each other. And I mean, obviously, I think it's probably, like, a really emotional time when he left. So there would have been, like, words thrown around.
I remember that fight. In fact, I seem to recall a few choice phrases coming out of your mouth.
But, like, this is, again, like, no one considered Dean in this, I don't think, because he can obviously recall what was said, right? So he was there and having to watch his, like, brother and his dad, like, argue.
Yeah, and, like, so Sam brings up the point that, like, most fathers would be proud that their son got a full ride to Stanford and not kick him out of the house or kick him out of wherever they were. Mm-hmm. And, like, Dean also brings up the fact that, like, so John had kicked him out, said some probably some pretty nasty things, maybe, we don't know, but Dean says he remembers Sam having some choice words or phrases too. And then he goes on to explain that, like, whenever John had a spare moment, he would actually travel to Stanford to make sure that he was safe.
What are you talking about?
He's afraid of what could have happened to you if he wasn't around. But even when you two weren't talking, he used to swing by Stanford whenever he could. Keep an eye on you. Make sure you were safe.
And so I think because of, like, this comes up, like, the main reason for this does come up because the way that I kind of interpreted this, and I guess it comes true later on, is John was truly scared that not that, like, something every day would happen to him, but something supernatural would happen to him.
Yeah, for sure. So, like, I like heard that and I was like, well, was he actually just like looking out for him, or was he checking up on him to see if anything had happened, you know? Mm-hmm. Which I guess makes sense, but, like, it makes you wonder more about, like, John's motives if he was going to go see him at Stanford. Yeah.
And, like, so Dean's, like, clearly, like, conflicted with all of this because he probably also, you know, like, with the shapeshifter episode, we heard how resentful he was and how jealous he was for, like, how Sam managed to have a life.
Yeah.
Whereas he couldn't have because there was so much pressure put on him. And the fact that Dean forms, like, super strong bonds with who he considers his family. Yeah. And that, I mean, that comes up, like, throughout the rest of the show, like, until it ends. Like, the people that he considers family, he will go to the end of the world for. Yeah. And he can't, at this point, he can't seem to express that to Sam, or, like, Sam's not listening to that. So it's kind of, I don't know, this conversation, I was like, this is what we've been waiting for. This is what we hoped for in Hookman. Yeah. But, you know, it came up in, like, the middle of this. And it didn't really come to a conclusion. They're both like, okay, we'll just have to drop it. Like, we can't. Yeah. There's nothing we can do about it right now, kind of thing.
I mean, I guess in a narrative sense, like, it's making you feel like this will be resolved at some point when they find John. So it kind of makes sense that way. I feel bad because I feel like Dean was obviously pulled in two different directions because he obviously cares about his dad and he obviously cares about Sam. So he's kind of stuck in the middle. Whereas I don't know if Sam feels that same kind of, like, attachment there. Yeah. Like, he was quite pleased to leave. I don't know if he would have ever gone back if he didn't have to.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think he probably would have stayed as a lawyer and like gone on with his life. I mean, unfortunately that's not actually that uncommon with certain families, that you never speak to your family again. So but can you imagine how Dean would have felt going through like the rest of the season without his brother? Or the rest of the show even. If it was just like Dean and John, it would not have been as good as it is.
No, I don't think it would. Yeah, I don't think it would have ended well. I mean, but no, don't say it. Really interesting. Like, I wasn't expecting this in this episode.
Neither was I. Because of how badly rated it was, I was like, whatever. Like, we'll watch it, see what happens. If it's not going to really be anything, but no, there's this actually heavy theme throughout.
Definitely, of like family, I guess, and being an outcast almost. I don't know what the main sort of feel here was, but maybe it was that. Yeah,
I think so.
Okay, so they go and talk to a professor of anthropology, and they claim to be in his class, and he's just like, I think he's like, yeah, but I think he knows he's not in his class.
Yeah.
But he's obviously got some interesting things to look at, so maybe he doesn't care. But so he said these bones are about 170 years old, and he says they're like Native American in origin, apparently, and that he suggests that they go talk to some like local people about this, because he doesn't know any like local legends or anything relating to this site particularly. So I mean, so they go. I guess it's to a reservation.
I think so.
Yeah, and they talk to a guy there whose name is Joe, and he kind of gives them all this exposition about like why this place might be like seeing things supernaturally. But it basically boils down to like Native American burial ground trope. Like, you don't really need to go into the details here, but that's what this whole like, I guess, monster of the week is. I'm wondering why, if this is the reason that this episode is rated so badly on like IMDb, is because of the use of this trope in this episode.
Yeah, I'm inclined to believe to agree with you on that one. Because it does feel. I mean, they kind of did it with Wendigo, because that is a Native American urban legend too.
Yeah,
but like. It was just, with that one, it felt like, I guess because it's an actual monster, and like rather than like this kind of like, there's no resolve with this.
Yeah,
it's just a curse.
So like with Wendigo, it's kind of related to like folk. I feel like it's more folklore, like local folklore. Like you have that in various sort of regions in a country. Like people might believe certain things about that area, but with this, like. I mean, people have probably written better stuff than we can talk about here, but it's a fairly like harmful trope, because it kind of like others people, like makes them seem like mystical and like, you know, let's call it out what it is. It's pretty racist, right? So,
yeah, I mean, yeah.
You know, so it's not great, and it's kind of something that should be like left behind. And I think later on I think this is the reason why like Kripke said this is one of his least favourite episodes. I think they kind of realised that they used this trope in a kind of lazy way. Because actually, like, the reason for the bugs and stuff and all the things happening could have well been related to something else. So
yeah, I mean, they could have chosen something else, and like, or if they were going to do this, like, so they find out it's a curse, or maybe they could have used like Native American like traditions to try and like rid them of the curse or something. Rather than just being like, it's the white man that must be killed, and on the 6th day nobody will survive to, you know.
Yeah, like, it's all very.
It was definitely lazy. It was definitely like not. It didn't feel like a supernatural episode. It felt like a cheap, like cop out, basically.
Yeah, for sure.
And just super disrespectful, I guess.
Yeah, disappointing. I've said that before. I think that's going to be my word, isn't it? When these things come up, it's disappointing. I guess this is what happens when maybe you don't have that diverse, like people maybe writing on things sometimes. I think this stuff is. I hope like this stuff's improving. To be honest, like I think media is improving. It's just, you know,
it's taking its time.
It's taking its time. So they find out from this that on the 6th night, which happens to be the same day, this is basically going to come to like a climax, and everyone on that land is going to die by bugs, I guess.
So they say an interesting line here, something along the line, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but you don't break a curse, you just get out of its way. Almost like that. They had some pretty good advice, which they definitely did not follow later on.
That's so true. I didn't think of it that way, but like, yeah, stop trying to solve curses then. You said it like before.
Exactly.
That you can't do anything about it.
You just get out of its way.
Maybe stop trying to curse yourselves. Anyway. So, yeah. So we cut to Matthew. He's in the garden at night, and he finds a bunch of cockroaches, which I'm sure is your favourite.
Well, so there was something about that just kind of made me laugh. I think it just reminded me of like Men in Black when that happened.
Oh,
anyway,
yeah.
it was just like it wasn't that bad.
Yeah. And so they decided they have to get out of the way of this curse. So they're not going to try and solve it. They're just going to try and get the people off the property so they survive the night. I don't know what their plan was to do afterwards, because surely this was going to keep happening, but I'm sure they had a plan for that to stop them from going back. So Dean's ringing Larry, and he's trying to call him like there's a gas leak, but he's not having it. He like, well, I know this guy's voice and you're not him. Mm-hmm. So Sam rings Matthew, and he says to him to get his family out and like just do whatever it takes. And then Dean takes the phone and is like, no, don't do that. Like, tell him that he needs to go to the hospital. And I was like, yeah, that's actually pretty smart advice.
Yeah, it's true. So at that point, I'm pretty sure Larry would guess that it's not true, just because he's had this weird phone call for them to leave, and then suddenly his son has like a pain on his side. Maybe his mum, like if he went to his mum, it might have worked okay. But that particular one, I don't think it would have worked even if he had lied.
I put here, like, I wonder if Dean gives us advice because he knows how to deal with difficult people. You know,
you're not wrong.
He has more experience of dealing with John than Sam does, so maybe he would think of things that would work on him rather than Anyway,
so it's. I mean, again, overthinking it a little bit, but when they go to talk to Joe on the reservation, Joe doesn't let Dean speak. He says you're a liar, and basically like doesn't like him. Yeah. And then Sam actually tells them the truth, and he then explains what was going on. Mm-hmm. So, and it comes back to this conversation that like Sam's like saying, no, tell him the truth, and Dean's like, no, just lie. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know what to read into that, or if there is anything to read into that really.
Yeah, that Sam always seems to mostly tell the truth, and Dean does lie more easily. I don't know. I don't think...
Maybe it's a morality thing again?
I think it's like, again, this whole theme of this episode. Actually, sorry, my brain's like tick, tick, tick. Because Sam is being very truthful in this episode with how he feels about John and like leaving and stuff. And Dean is more like, he's very much on John's side and saying that there's like nothing wrong with their family and how they live, and you know, that, let's be honest, that's a big lie.
Yeah, this lie by denial for sure.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. See, that brain does work sometimes. So they turn up, and Matthew's like, sorry, I couldn't get him to leave because I told the truth. Like, okay. Yes. So, like, Sam and Dean are basically kind of shouting at Larry and trying to convince him to leave. Luckily, they don't have to try and convince him for long, because, like, the bug zapper starts going crazy and there's all these bugs in the sky. So it becomes
biblical swarm, bug swarm. I like the way he referred to it as that.
Yeah, biblical. So they try and lock down the house, but all the phones are dead and the electric's out.
Because apparently it's been chewed through. Like, I would understand that if it was they'd gone with like locust, because locusts just eat everything. Yeah. But I don't think bugs, I don't think bees just chew through things.
I guess maybe it was like there was sort of a battalion of insects, like
maybe.
Different types to do different things to attack these people. I don't know, coordinated. So they decide they're going to try and outlast it in the house, because they think that hopefully it should end at sunrise. So Dean finds some bug spray, and like everyone sort of looks at him like, what? But he's pretty serious, like, this is going to help.
And It kind of does, but kind of doesn't.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to talk about your bit of trivia that you've told me before. Like when we first started this podcast, she was like, "I'm so excited to tell you about this one piece of trivia for this one episode." I was like, "All right, take it away."
Okay, so at least people probably already know this. I feel like it's quite well known, but I'm going to say it anyway because it makes me really happy. So when they initially filmed this, they were trying to CGI the bees in the house, but the CGI wasn't quite right. I guess you could kind of see that with how bad the spiders were, that they couldn't get it to look quite right. So instead, their solution to this was to fill the room with actual bees. So I think Jensen was the first person to get stung by these bees. They put like lining in their outfits to stop the insects from like crawling up their sleeves and stuff. But everyone got stung.
So after like this, so they're in the like living room, and then he's like upstairs.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, whatever. You can actually see the bugs, the bee sting on his forehead. That's the first one I noticed.
Yeah. So, like, I can't believe they agreed to this. First of all, like, yeah. So they filled this room full of bees. They filmed the whole thing. And then when they go back to look at the footage, the bees just don't appear on the camera. So they had to CGI them in anyway. So they went through all this, got stung. And I think you can... See, I don't know if it's makeup. I think maybe that it's probably not. But once they get past all of the bugs and everything, you can see that they are stung on their faces.
Yeah, you definitely can.
Definitely can.
Like, I think I counted like 5 on Jared's face.
Yeah.
And maybe like 3 on Jensen's. It's like, why? Okay. Like, you can get bug repellent spray. Like, why wouldn't you spray yourself with that? At least it would help. I mean, maybe they did. And so that's why they weren't literally stung to death. Because that's usually what happens.
The problem is like being around bees is generally it's quite safe. As long as you're not acting and like pretending to freak out about them, because I'm sure that meant they got stung more. Right,
and also with a flamethrower that he has with his bug spray.
Yeah,
like that's gonna agitate them, and like whoever gave them these bees is probably a little bit pissed that like a whole bunch of them probably died.
Was the flamethrower actually real, or did they CGI that? I don't like.
I think it's. Well, I mean, he would have been spraying something anyway.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, for sure.
And I think it is real. I do think it is real, just because of like if it was CGI, like it was really well done, and nothing else was well done in this episode.
I never thought about that when I was watching the scene, that maybe it's spray. But yeah, like the things they put. So like I was saying, like in Dead in the Water, they like basically drowned Jensen, like holding him underwater before he like bobs back up. Now he's in a room full of bees. Like, what else? I mean, there's other stuff coming up. We'll point it out.
Yeah. I'm not sure what. It's not so far. Nothing too bad.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that when I heard it. I was like, "There's just no need for him to be in this room with bees." Anyway, that was my trivia that I'm really excited to tell everyone.
They established that it was like about midnight when they got to the house.
Yes.
And that it would all be over at sunrise. Mm-hmm. Apparently sunrise is at like 12:20. Because
yes, like sunrise comes really early.
Yeah. At first I was thinking, oh, okay, maybe like the Native American tribe like did something that are coming with flames or something because you kind of see like an orangey hue start to take over the sky, and I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. No, the sun's rising at like 20 minutes into this bug attack. Like, no.
Yeah.
So the timing was really, really weird. Like, I'm thinking that's probably another thing that people caught on, because there's no way that sunset, like, even if you took in like movie time, which is usually like much shorter, that initial like attack of bees was so fast.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. There was no indication that hours has passed.
Yeah, I thought something like mystical was happening, because I was like, no way, it's sunrise, and then it just was. This was like, oh, so they didn't actually do anything. Like this episode, I mean, the family might have got stung more by bees, but actually probably the exact same thing would have happened if Sam and Dean weren't there. You know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
exactly.
I don't know how much they helped in this situation. I mean, a little bit. The flamethrower probably helped an amount, but they were definitely going to get like eaten by bees.
Yeah, like
if the sun hadn't risen. Yeah,
because like it also doesn't make sense that like so we saw that the Travis's friend, who I've completely forgotten his name, he was killed within 5 minutes because it was the time it took for him to get a rope and back to the hole again.
Yeah.
Linda Bloom died probably within a few minutes. She fell out of the shower and like she was dead before morning. Mm-hmm. It's just like, but suddenly they could survive for at least 4 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, it was supposed to be March, which sunrise is not that early in March. It's usually probably around 7 o'clock. So technically, probably more like 7 hours. Mm-hmm. They survived with this tiny ass piece of bug spray and flamethrower. No.
Yeah,
no.
I know. Yeah, it's not good, but it happened. So.
Yep. I
think there's like maybe this is season 15, season 14, but I think they do address. Maybe it's earlier. They do address how badly written this episode is in the show, where it's like,
oh, they do?
Oh, yeah, they do. They're talking to Chuck, and I think he says like, "Oh, you had to live through like the bad writing of bugs."
So, I didn't remember that.
Yeah, that's they knew it was bad. Yeah, I don't think it's anybody's favorite episode, but like,
no,
for the conversations at least, it's worth watching, I guess. So yeah, they saved the day. They didn't really. The sun did, but yeah. And I did put like, oh yeah, you can see the bugs things on their faces, like. So they say it's morning, and they say goodbye to Larry, and he explains that the development's now on hold, like no one's going to be moving in there. He's like shutting it down. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's interesting because I don't know how much power you would have to do that. Like, surely if someone thinks they can build houses there now, someone's going to do it eventually.
Yeah, I guess so. Because I'm not sure how that works, like whether it is just like one person does all the development or if it's like a company and he's just like, he's the head of that company or whatever. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, he said it was a bad financial decision, but he seems pretty happy because it's implied that like, his relationship with his son is better now because of this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then Sam says goodbye to Matt, and he's getting rid of all his bugs.
Because they creep him out now.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so yeah, he kind of says goodbye to him. And then, so the end of this episode, so Sam and Dean are kind of leaning against the Impala watching this family pack up their stuff. And Sam says like, oh, I want to find Dad now. And like he says that he wants to apologise to him. I think he says, I want to apologise for all the things that I said, and I realised that like he was doing the best that he could.
I want to apologize to him.
For what?
All the things I said to him. He's just doing the best he could.
And then Dean's like, oh yeah, but you know, you can apologise, but you'll be fighting again in 5 minutes. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
Like, it's all very chill.
Mm-hmm. I wrote it's a bit of a weird turn.
Yeah.
Because like it didn't feel very like, I don't really feel like that would be the conclusion that you would come to. Not really.
No.
Like, so the reason why it worked for this family that we've just seen is because like there was truth in what Sam, what I keep calling Matt Sam.
There's a reason for that.
What? Yeah, the hairstyle's the same, the styling's the same. It's like mini me. Anyway, so like you know, Larry realized that listening to his son would have actually helped the situation rather than like fight him. Mm-hmm. But there hasn't been any kind of that resolution yet. Like,
no.
Okay, we've heard that John used to say that he was really proud of Sam on a Phantom Traveler, like he was telling, his name was Jerry, right?
Yeah.
And Dean just revealed that he went to Stanford to check up on him. But even still, like, in that situation, it's not Sam's responsibility to apologize.
No.
Because he's the child. And, like, granted, like, I know that for me personally, I have apologized to my parents for the way I acted as a teenager, because I know it was horrendous. So everybody does need to have that conversation eventually. But, like, I feel like sometimes it should... I mean, I'm not a parent, so I can't give parenting advice. But, and I don't remember how my conversation about being a teenager, like, started.
Yeah.
But I do feel like it should be initiated by the parents rather than the child. But at the same time, it does make sense for a child. Like, you've grown out of it, so it's like your sort of like rite of passage to be like, hey, I acknowledge that I was a dick as a child, as a teenager.
Yeah. Like, I think that's completely right. Like, I'm also not a parent, but I think that the best thing you can say to like a child when you know you've been wrong, and like John must know that he reacted badly, is like you would have to admit to them that you did wrong and apologize genuinely. I don't think Sam owes John an apology at all, not at all, actually. Because you're right. He was probably like, you know, he's only 22 now, so he would have been younger when he left for college. There's no way. There's just no way. And yeah, this was a weird thing for me because actually nothing's been resolved here. Like, Sam and Dean haven't had a conversation in which to resolve this either. Their last conversation they had, it was at the like anthropology institute or whatever, and they just cut it off then and didn't really talk about it again. They were, you know, so I guess it leaves it open to it being resolved with John, and like they're trying to say that this is going to be resolved when they meet him. But I think it would have been better, instead of Sam saying that he wanted to apologize, is if he had said something like, oh, I wish like Dad could understand me like Larry now understands Matt, like something along that effect, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Like a mirroring rather than like, oh, watching this family be happy has resolved all of our issues. You know?
Right, which clearly hasn't.
Yeah. And it makes me just feel for them so much. It's just like, because you know John's a dick. So
he is. Yeah.
And like the hero worship that Dean has for him in this episode, like he defends him so much and defends like the hunting way of life so much. And you know that it's not true. Like, you know, he doesn't feel like this because of the last episode also as well. The fact that he's saying like, you left me with him. And yeah, I think the good thing is once they do finally get together with John, maybe they understand each other a bit better. But we'll discuss that when we get to it.
Yeah. So this episode was heavy, but it was definitely heavy and very much unexpected for how low it was rated.
Yeah. I don't think it was necessarily a bad episode. I think there is the makings of a good episode there with poor execution and some bad writing.
Yeah, there was definitely some choices that were made that probably should not have been made.
Exactly.
And a couple of like cop-outs that, you know, they could have avoided, but, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
It is what it is. They obviously can't go back and change it. And if it's true that they acknowledged how bad it was, then, you know, it is
what
good
it
that
is.
they. Yep. So next week's episode is Home. I don't think either of us are particularly looking forward to this one because it's probably going to destroy us emotionally. Let's be real.
I'm not ready.
This is probably the first super emotional episode of the season, and I mean, I don't really remember this episode. Like, there's very few episodes from here on out that I truly remember, so we will see how that goes.
Yes.
And
I'm looking forward to it. I'm worried about how long the episode of the podcast is going to be.
So, fair warning about next week. it may be longer than usual. So, you know, just keep us on in the background. I'm sure we're somewhat entertaining to you guys. Hopefully. We are seeing your comments. We are seeing, like, responding and stuff. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah, it makes us really happy. Thank you so much.
Yes. But we are still stuck in purgatory. Hopefully next week we'll get out.